Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Eating the Elephant and happy Hump Day. It's the day before Valentine's Day, so gentlemen, if you forgot, you are running out of time. Just letting you know, you need to get on it and get to the card store or to the florist. I'd like to open this evening with a thank you to Mike and Mia Pecky, first of all. They came to me in some distress. Fortunately, we were able to help them with frankly very little effort on our part. But they took the advice we gave them about advocating for themselves and educating themselves about the policy, and they did really, really well. They've had some really good results since that happened. And today was a really good day because they sent us another one of their friends who was similarly in a little bit of distress. I think their wheels were in neutral. The funny thing was that they were really a lot further ahead in the process than they realized. But I got to tell you, it's very gratifying to see people getting what they need after being so frustrated. For those of you that are frustrated, don't stew in your own juices. Don't sit in neutral. Advocate for yourself. Go seek help. Find somebody that can do something for you and that can get you where you need to be. And we'll come back to that in just a minute. But I want to talk about a couple of things, hopefully a little more briefly tonight than we normally do. The first thing I want to mention is something I've posted on. We're talking about a Category 5 storm. And I learned a new term today. I think what we're going to do is we're going to start calling this a Cat 4.9. Because there are a number of folks out there that think that the damage or a political determination is made about whether it's a Cat 4 or 5 or a Cat 12 storm, if there was such a thing. It's based on one thing and one thing only. It's the sustained wind speed as determined by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. And I think everybody has a good personal sort of emotional interest in having this named a Cat 5 storm. But I have to be honest with all of you, it doesn't really matter from a financial point of view. I don't think it will really get us that much more attention in the national media. I do realize we've fallen out of the spotlight, and that's unfortunate, but I don't know that recategorizing this as a Cat 5 is going to help. We will get final data, I believe it's in April, and there will be a final determination made. And sometimes for these storms that are kind of on the border between two different categories, as additional data comes into NOAA, they do reclassify storms, and we may be reclassified as a Cat 5, but the pressure doesn't matter, the damage doesn't matter, none of that matters to science. What science determines is the average wind speed over a 1 minute period of time must meet or exceed 157 miles an hour. And so even if there was tornadic activity or very brief bursts of wind gusts that were very, very much higher than that, we're still a Cat 4 storm until we hear differently. I just want to clear that up because there's an awful lot of emotion wrapped up in whether this is called a Cat 5 storm or not, and a number cannot determine the pain that everyone feels. A number is not going to make anything better or worse. It's not going to make people feel better, I don't think. If this is called a Cat 5 storm, it's not going to get your roof on any quicker. It's not going to get your drywall hung, and it's not going to help you negotiate with your insurance company or your contractor. What is going to make a difference is how we respond to whatever that number is. We've got to keep our heads up. We've got to keep looking forward and moving forward, and that's going to be the focus. But I wanted to be very clear with everyone. There's been some what I call tinfoil hattery running around the internet, particularly on Facebook, about political reasons to keep this as a Cat 4 storm, and I simply don't believe those to be true. This is a purely mathematical, scientific determination, and right now we're at a 4. It may very well be determined later that this was a Cat 5, but I do tend to like for right now that we have survived a Cat 4.9 storm, and that's what I'm going to stick with for a little while. I wanted to talk to you about a couple of insurance things, as we always do. One is called the valued policy law. Florida is a valued policy state. So something that I want to kind of make clear to folks that have very severe damage, if your house is determined to be a total loss, and that could be that you get very, very close to the limit of insurance as determined by, let me rephrase a little bit. If the cost to rebuild your home is very, very close to the limit of your insurance, chances are your house is going to be determined to be a total loss. If it's an actual total loss, that's one thing. There's also a term you may hear which is called constructive total loss. These terms are synonymous really for you. It's a little bit like an actual knockout in boxing versus a technical knockout. The result is the same, and the result of that is that in very short order, your insurance company has to write you a check for the coverage A limit on your policy. No exceptions. Now, that doesn't mean that's where you're done, because you still have contents, additional living expenses. You may have ordinance and law coverage above and beyond that coverage A limit, but it does sometimes simplify things. I also want to be very clear. If your home is determined to be a total loss, that doesn't mean it has to be bulldozed. If you decide to repair your home or rebuild on the same footprint using pieces of that home, that's up to you. That's your decision. What it does do is it takes the decision on payment out of the hands of the insurance company, and they have to pay it because that's what the law requires. So that's the valued policy state. I'd also like to talk about a matching statute. Florida is a matching state. There is a statute that requires that things match. And by that I mean, if there are 4 different windows, or if there are 4 windows on one side of your home and only one is damaged, the insurance company can't come back and put a window in there that doesn't match the other 3. If your home is, say, built in 1975, the windows in your home probably are not available anywhere anymore. And what the insurance company is required to do is put windows in that match one another from a particular vantage point. We're going to talk about line of sight a little bit later, maybe in another episode. But for now, what you need to know is that things have to match and they have to look good. The aesthetics are very important. They can't give you a home that looks like it's been pieced together by an angry child. Where this has really come into play with a lot of folks is siding. Let's say you've had blue number 4 siding on your house for 6 years. Well, the sun and the rain and the elements have faded that. And if you go out and buy new siding, even by the same manufacturer with the same color scheme, it's probably not going to look the same. So the insurance company, at a very minimum, will have to put new siding on that entire side of your house. Depending on the extent of the damage and depending on the aesthetics of the home, they may have to go beyond that one side of the house as well. So what you need to think about is something I've said before. You need to do what makes sense, and you need to insist that the insurance company also does what makes sense, because you're entitled to that. They're not entitled to put your home back in little mismatched pieces like a puzzle where the pieces don't fit together. Things need to be smooth, they need to look good, and if that means they have to pay for something that's undamaged, that's their problem and it's not yours. So be aware that Florida is a matching state. We have rules and statutes in place that require insurance companies make your home match and make aesthetic sense. If you put 2 different colors of siding on the same side of your house, it's not going to look good, you're not going to be happy, and if you are subject to rules and regulations from an HOA, the Homeowners Association is going to blow a stack. They're not going to let that happen. So again, the insurance company is required to pay this bill. Along those lines, I need everyone to remember, please, we've said this before, your insurance company has a legal obligation to you. And that legal obligation is that within the policy limits, after you pay your deductible, for example, they are supposed to put you back in the same place you were before the storm hit. So things need to match, things need to look correct, things should be up to code, things should be current, and should be of the same like, kind, and quality that you had before. Don't accept ratty things in place of good things. And don't do something, and don't allow your insurance company to do something if it just doesn't make sense. If it doesn't make sense to you, get someone to explain it, whether it's your adjuster, your agent, if it's a public adjuster or attorney, maybe somebody in the Department of Financial Services in Tallahassee. Get someone to explain it to you where you understand it, and until that is done, don't accept the answer. You need to get an answer, and you need to understand the explanation as well. And finally, I'm going to leave you with what I try to leave you with on several occasions, and we're going to reiterate this, and we're going to come back to this again and again, because I think it's still important, and I think I need to repeat it probably every time. And that is, there's a process for you. You need to educate yourself. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to escalate your claim if necessary, and you need to mediate your claim if necessary. Those 4 steps and those 4 general precepts are the things that you need to pay attention to. Educate, advocate, escalate, and mediate. You need to educate yourself. You need to read your policy. You need to understand the coverage. You need to talk to your agent or talk to someone that's expert. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to put your foot on the gas and leave it there. You need to make phone calls. You need to press your adjuster. You need to make sure that you are pressing your contractor as well, or anybody else that's responsible for helping you put your home back together. You need to escalate if necessary. You need to get a supervisor involved, a vice president. You need to call the Pope if that's what it takes to get your home back to where it was. And if none of those things work, what you need to do is call the CFO's office in Tallahassee, the Department of Financial Services, and you need to ask them for their help. And they will give you free mediation services. Well, I'm sorry, they're not free. I call them prepaid mediation services because your tax dollars pay those people. And the people in the CFO's office have been very effective. They've been very passionate, very dedicated. But what I would tell you that we have learned, particularly as we've gotten this far into the process and people's desks have stacked up with pretty big piles, is the more work you do ahead of time to set up your case, the more things you do to make your case and your situation look as good as you possibly can to the folks in Tallahassee, the better results you're going to have. If you need some help putting that together, you just need somebody to sort of guide you through the process a little bit to help you figure out what documents you're going to need, give us a call, let us know. We've walked several people through those processes, whether they're our clients or not. And if you walk in with a very well-prepared case and you can show a mediator that you've done your job and the insurance company hasn't done theirs, it won't go well for them and it will go very, very well for you. Thanks for listening again. We'll be back to you on Sunday. Hope you have a good week. Keep your feet on the gas.